I'm the dude. So that's what you call me.
Are you a virgin?
Yeah, not since I was 10.
Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret.
Come on to the coast. We get together, have a few laughs.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Can I return it if it doesn't fit?
It always fits. Eventually.
Welcome back, Movie Minglers. I'm Caveman.
And I'm Maggie.
And this is episode 9 of our series from Letterboxd, Top 75 Animated and Live Action Films. And that brings us to episode 9, Knives Out. But before we dive into this movie, we have just one announcement to make before we go any further. 2 weeks from the release of this podcast for Knives Out, we are going to be releasing a special bonus episode just for Star Wars Day, May 4th.
I'm very excited for this podcast. If you guys don't know, and most of you don't, Caveman and I are diehard Star Wars fans. We've seen all the movies. We've seen most of the shows. We've got deep opinions about the cartoons and all of the other wonderful things. So, yeah, May the 4th, we'll be dropping a probably not terribly sober Star Wars episode. It's just going to be Star Wars, all of it. The shows, the movies, the music, the spoofs, all of it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, we're just going to cover top to bottom Star Wars, everything that we've at least experienced and seen and listened to and
been on the rides, you know, our tattoos.
It's all going to be discussed in probably a pretty long episode.
I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun to record.
It's Star Wars is nowhere to be seen on this list.
Unfortunately.
So to make up for that, hey, might as well do it ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a podcast, so we can do whatever we want with it. So we're going to Star Wars it up a bit.
It's not going to be officially part of the list. The list is still going to be numbered 1 through 75.
No, it'll be a bonus episode.
It'll just be a bonus episode, and
like the Oscars episode, which you guys seem to love, and we're glad for.
May the 4th is a Saturday.
I'm very excited.
Knives Out was released in 2019, directed by Rian Johnson.
Speaking of Star Wars.
I'm going to do a real quick rapid fire starring because this list is thick.
The cast is incredible.
So we've got Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Shannon, Don Johnson, Toni Collette, Lakeith Stanfield, and the amazing Christopher Plummer. I don't know how many Rian Johnson movies you've seen.
I mean, The Last Jedi, the 2 Knives Out movies, maybe a couple of them. I don't know.
Did you watch Brothers Bloom with me?
I feel like I've seen that movie. I don't think I've seen that movie
in 2008
with you. Ooh, maybe 2008. 2008. I kind of have a vague memory of watching that, but
I probably saw it in 2008 or 2009.
Doesn't one of the brothers die at the end?
I haven't seen it since 2008 or 2009, so
okay,
I have no idea. I just remember I watched it and I tolerated it. It was I'm indifferent about it because it's been so long and I wasn't really into those kind of movies then. So I'd love to revisit it sometime. But you also got Looper, which I don't know if you ever saw Looper.
Never saw it. Didn't care to.
2012. It's one of my favorite Rian Johnson movies. I thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt was really good, especially
even though they make him look like what's his face, Bruce Willis.
Yeah, he's still. How does that change his performance?
I mean, I just didn't care.
I was a little annoyed because I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt is a very handsome man, and it kind of sucked that the whole film he's got prosthetics on his face to make him look more like Bruce Willis. Yeah. Then of course you've got the much loved and very well welcomed into the Star Wars family, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi.
Oh yeah, that movie wasn't in any way controversial or picked apart by nerds, but that's for our episode coming up on May 4th.
The only movie I haven't seen from Rian Johnson is a movie, I think it was his first movie, 2005, called Brick. and I know absolutely nothing about it. But this is definitely my favorite Rian Johnson movie, period.
So we will eventually cover Knives Out, Glass Onion, whatever. It is on this list. It's much further down. So I'm going to try really hard not to compare the two because I'm going to save that for that episode.
It might happen a little.
But I mean, I think I've preferred Glass Onion to this version. This movie is great. Like, don't get me wrong. The cast is phenomenal. The writing is so good. I could watch every single Blanc detective movie that is made. Like, give me all of them. But I just think I preferred Glass Onion a little bit more. So, but
that'll be a fun conversation come Glass Onion.
This is like easily top 2. I mean, you know, I'm a Star Wars sequels apologist. I love those movies, but yeah, the Rian Johnson's was definitely the weakest of the 3. But that will be for again our podcast.
That'll be an interesting conversation because I disagree with that.
Yeah,
this was also Christopher Plummer's last theatrical live-action film.
which is a bummer. I mean, he was an old man who lived a good long life, but what an incredible actor.
What a really fun movie to end your career on, too.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse, like
Kevin Spacey, who Christopher Plummer came in and reshot all his scenes for some movie I never even ended up watching.
No, I was going to say it could have been a lot worse, like Orson Welles' last movie being that Transformers cartoon. You know,
How dare you?
Some people go out on a low note, is all I'm saying.
Wow. Wow. Now we're adding Transformers to the movie. The list.
Only if we can do all the Transformers movies.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Because,
wait.
To be fair.
Look forward to that really, really inebriated podcast because that's the only way I think you could get me to talk about those terrible movies.
To be fair, the first one's fun. We got a lot of history at the first one. We've got a lot of history at the first one, but
after that...
Yeah, it's diminishing returns all the way down into the garbage heap that it is today.
I looked up the synopsis of this film just to see what was written about it, and I think they were really trying their best not to give away any spoilers, because it's one sentence which reads, "A detective investigates the death of the patriarch of an eccentric, combative family."
Yeah, if you haven't seen Knives Out, I wholeheartedly recommend just putting the podcast on hold and spending some time watching that movie. It is a ton of fun. It's wacky, it's screwball, it's a solid like mystery detective thriller. The cast is incredible.
It has a lot of originality too. Murder mystery movies are a lot of times very cookie cutter. Like
very formulaic. I mean,
very.
You've seen one Puro movie, you've seen them all.
You see one episode of Law and Order, and that's kind
it's
of
always
the
the guest star that did it, guys. It's the one that like if John Stamos is on an episode of Law and Order, surprise, he did it.
We'll get into it a little later, but this movie was compared a lot to the film Clue.
I haven't seen Clue in so long that I don't even think I could compare the two. But
for reasons why, because I think that's another murder mystery movie that really was fun, original, and the reveal of who did it was creative. So Maggie, what did you think the first time you watched Knives Out? Was it an immediate, like, that was really, really, I don't know, you tell me. I'm not even going to put words in your mouth. Just
I kind of don't remember watching this movie for the first time. We all know what it was like trying to remember anything pre-pandemic. It was yesterday. It was 10 years ago. It never happened.
Time has no meaning.
And time has no meaning any now. It's all made up and it's all very silly. I remember, I don't think I saw it in theater. I know I didn't see it in theater. And I think that I was intrigued by it. But also at the time we had younger kids and there was a while there. There was a good half a decade plus where it was hard for us to go see movies together. And so we were more selective about the ones that we went to see together and separately, and we're working parents, and, it's hard. So we saw it in our home. I don't think I had to be dragged into it at all. I think that I was just like, oh yeah, I like the people in this cast. Like, who doesn't love Chris Evans? I saw all the discourse about his sweater. So, like, yeah, let's watch it. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to, especially after having seen The Last Jedi and being a little iffy on Rian Johnson and his work. But no, I was thrilled from the get. I mean, it's such a rich movie that just pulls you in. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and although I've only seen it twice, because this was the second time I've watched it, it's a movie that I could easily watch again. And honestly, the only reason that I haven't watched it again is that it's not on Netflix. And for some reason, I thought that it was a Netflix-based movie, because the second one is. And so when we tried to pull it up the other day, it wasn't on any streaming platform. And, you know, Caveman dug the physical copy out
That's
from our
right,
shelf.
physical media, everybody.
Physical media, guys. Like, it's making a comeback, and it has never not been a thing in our home. I'm pretty sure you probably bought it as soon as it came out on Blu-ray, right?
I think I did.
Yeah,
That's how much I liked this movie, was as soon as it was available.
Did you see it in the theater?
I don't remember.
Oh, yeah.
I honestly, I cannot remember if this was something I just
I mean,
watched
it was
at home,
close to, it was just over 4 years ago. Like, that was
It's too
1,000
long.
years
Yeah,
ago.
It's too long ago to remember.
Who remembers 2019 for any reason? But no, I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I can't wait to, like, dive into it. I can't wait to talk about how much I love Michael Shannon, who honestly might be my favorite person in this whole movie.
The movie starts with this really neat slow motion of the two German shepherds running towards the camera. And at the moment when you first see that, it's like, okay, there's two German shepherds running towards the camera. And it's fun that they don't touch on that moment again until the very end of the movie.
Oh, were they chasing after...
They're chasing after, or they're running to the fence where
Ransom
is...
You know, I might not have put two and two together.
I have watched this. You said you watched this is your second time.
I'm pretty
watching
sure this is my second time seeing it.
And I probably, since we own it, probably half a dozen for me.
Yeah, I've seen Glass Onion at least 3 times, and maybe more if you count the amount of times I watched people watch it on YouTube. So Glass Onion is the one I'm much more familiar with.
Aside from the German shepherds, the next shot is the coffee mug that says "My house, my rules, my coffee," and it's fun because it bookends the movie.
Very much so. One thing I did notice about the movie right away is the decor in the house. So it's a giant mansion. It's owned by a famous and very successful murder mystery writer, Harlan Thrombey, who's played by Christopher Plummer. So there's clowns and skulls and weird paintings and all sorts of, like, this is a house that you would imagine that a rich, kind of nutty writer would have. It's the house that I would have if I ever became a rich writer.
It seems like things that probably inspired him,
or
absolutely. Things that later on maybe he saw that reminded him of a book, but I could see him owning things that then inspired him, or bought an item to write about it. But the item, you can be it's easy to be descriptive about something when the item is sitting right in front of you.
Yeah, but it's a very just like, it's a warm house, it's a lived-in house, it's a big house, but it just, it's not sterile. There's the giant, like, throne of knives sitting in one room. There's a portrait of Harlan that hangs in the house that, like, its facial expressions change a lot. Like, I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but the expression on his face changes kind of with the mood of the movie.
I've never caught that.
Like, at the end, he's smiling.
Are you sure you've only seen this twice?
Well, I did read that on IMDb.
Cheater. Our non-sponsored sponsor.
Our non-sponsored sponsor. It's funny because in my notes I was talking about how there are too many clowns in the artwork around the house, and then I went off on a bit of an insane thought about Ryan Gosling that I wrote down for several sentences, and then just wrote back the family dynamic.
There was a line from Lakeith Stanfield's character that says,
"Who is so sexy."
The line goes, "Look around. The man lives on a clue board." And if you know what a clue board looks like, with the library and the billiards room and
it's
everything,
very much Clue-esque.
The mansion. Speaking of the mansion, that exterior shot with the German shepherds, The mansion from Clue and the mansion in this movie look very similar.
Which was probably done on purpose.
I think there's a lot, like I said, this movie's been compared to Clue a lot.
Yeah.
And not that it's copying the story, but I think the aesthetic for sure.
Which is cool. I mean, everybody knows Clue. Everybody knows, Mr. Plum in the basement with the hatchet or whatever.
Mr. Plummer?
Hey. We meet the incredible cast very quickly on because they're all there. Because their father, Christopher Plummer, has supposedly killed himself on the night of his 85th birthday.
I think it was 85.
Yeah. And so, you have Jamie Lee Curtis, who is so shrill and so good in this movie. You have Michael Shannon, who, like I said before, is just every single line that he says in this movie is a just solid 10 for 10 banger. Michael Shannon is so underrated, so sexy, and so twisted and weird. I would totally kneel before Zod. Like, I am never unhappy to see Michael Shannon in things. Even when I'm like, there's no way Michael Shannon can pull off this role, you're like, oh shit, Michael Shannon can be a lead romance or whatever. Like, he's so good. You have Don Johnson, who is such a smarmy douchebag. Don Johnson is so good at portraying these characters that are just like gross and evil. And I genuinely think that Don Johnson's character, Richard Drysdale, would be one of the people currently bitching about Beyonce's country music album on the internet. Because, it's not that he's racist. He just doesn't think she should be doing country. Like, his character is so gross.
Speaking of the way they introduce all the characters through the interview process, as they're going through each one of them.
The interrogation scene.
The interrogations are great.
It's incredible.
It's a great way we just started the movie. We know a guy committed suicide, and now we're going to start exposition. And one of the things that usually helps me rate a movie is how the exposition is handled. Sometimes it's just like
clunky as can be.
Like an actor had a script during ADR and was just like blah 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 blah, and it's just almost like, and when you're watching it sounds like somebody's just reading the script, and this happened, and the princess blah 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 lived in the and they couldn't blah 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 blah.
Oh, so in other words, like Damsel, because the exposition, we just watched Damsel 2 on Netflix, by the way, and the exposition in that movie was so clunky and so not half-assed, but just so sort of like half-assedly presented that's kind of what you're.
There's fun, creative ways to do exposition, and this is one of them.
Oh.
To do it in an interview where one at a time you get to meet each character one at a time, learn a lot about them in a short amount of time. So much about them. An example of just the worst exposition is the beginning of David Ayer's Suicide Squad.
This is Katana. You don't want to cross her. No, I mean...
Her blade takes the souls of its victims. I wouldn't cross her.
That man is a cardboard cutout. I mean, everything about David Ayer's Suicide Squad was awful. So, but like, yeah, no, the way that Rian Johnson puts together the interrogation scene where you meet all these characters is genius. And it was written in the script that way. And apparently a lot of people told him, because they couldn't see the vision of that scene on the screen, like they couldn't see how he was going to do it. So when they read that scene, they were like, we're not too sure about this, buddy. But he just kept being like, no, you have to trust me. Like, I know what I want.
I know, I have the vision in my head.
Yeah, and it is so well played out.
Director.
One of the things I loved about that scene is how every time they flash back to a memory with Christopher Plummer's character, the memory, like, each person was focused in the memory in a different way. Like, when Michael Shannon was talking about his dad's birthday, it shows Michael Shannon and his wife and his little Nazi kid standing there watching his dad blow out the candles. But then when Jamie Lee Curtis is talking about that same moment, she's behind him, as the dad is blowing out the candles, and they're all big smiles. And it just goes to show how everybody kind of thought they had a different relationship with their father.
Each kid thought that they were the center of their father's world.
Yes.
And they're when they talked, when they were interviewed and described the night and what they were doing, of course they're going to put themselves at the center of the night, not their father.
But
not
that's
their
such a
siblings.
wonderful touch, though. Just it's so quick.
The
It's
small
not
details, like you said, a small detail like his painting changing
Yes.
that I didn't catch, and now the next time I watch it, I'm definitely watching it. And
that painting was all CG, by the way, because it wasn't done by the time it needed to be.
Figured.
I love the introduction of Ana de Armas. I think that I've never been her biggest fan. I kind of find her a little annoying, admittedly. She's just one of those actresses that when I see her, it's not like when I see Evangeline Lilly, who I just despise for so many reasons and cannot stand. And every time I see her, I'm like, oh, fuck, there's Kate from Lost. Like, ugh. You know, whereas Ana de Armas does kind of disappear into her roles. Like, she's so much different in this than she is in any other movie. So I don't mind her in this so much. But I still don't 100% fully understand how in this film she had so much chemistry with Chris Evans. But in Ghosted, it was like they had never met before and were just two cardboard cutouts that you're trying to, like, work together.
Yeah, she did not fit Ghosted at all.
Oh, well, that movie...
The whole movie was bad. The writing was bad.
Yeah, everything was bad about it.
Everything was bad about it.
Except for the Sebastian Stan
But they didn't have chemistry,
cameo.
but they had, I think, even though they weren't a couple in this movie, they had just your basic
Oodles of
acting chemistry.
Ana de Armas' character, Marta, is the nurse to Harlan. And she's not the help, she's a live-in nurse. But she's treated like the help.
She's so treated like
And
she's a
one of the
servant.
things that cracks me up about this movie is how many times everybody says to her, you're just like family. You're a part of us. You're family. But, like, they don't mean it, and you know it. And so just, like, watching those, every time any of the Thrombey family says to her, oh, you're just like family. You're lying right through your teeth. The mere fact that they don't know what country she came from.
Every time somebody has a new South American country that they list off.
Like, they have no
she's
idea.
from Guatemala. Yeah, she's from
Peru. She's from Uruguay. Like,
Uruguay.
yeah.
Like, no, her family.
I don't think they even say.
They don't even say because it doesn't matter.
No.
But it matters that the family doesn't know.
All these sort of, like, white liberal, progressive,
Yeah.
the rich people, like, they just, the way that they treat her is, it's so subtle. And my favorite moment, jumping ahead just a tiny bit, is when the family is having a very politically charged conversation, and Don Johnson is giving this big lecture on what immigrants should do instead of what they do. You know, like, it's this whole thing. It's this whole him trying to be, like, progressive and, like, I know exactly what the immigrant experience is like. And then he just subtly hands his empty plate to Marta like she's a housekeeper.
Without even looking at
Without
her.
even looking at her. It is such
'Cause
a subtle moment, and it's so funny.
He expected her to take the plate.
And she did.
And
she took
did.
it.
Well, yeah, because she's
a good person.
She's a good person.
Yeah,
she's
she has
nice.
a great heart.
She doesn't care about these people because
I think she does, though.
well,
in her
we
own
find
way.
out later because I feel like
She
Christopher
cares about
Plummer's
Harlan.
character talks shit about his kids to her
Yeah.
a lot. He unloads his feelings and thoughts frustrations onto her, but never seemed in a way it was like he was treating her like a therapist. Just he treated her like a friend.
Yeah, she was his closest confidant for sure. She was the one that he.
She was
cared
the
about
only one
most.
that wasn't after his money.
Yeah.
Everybody else was.
Which coincidentally is why she got everything
All the
in
money.
the will.
You know, I know we moved on from the interview, but during the interview process, I really love how they're framing everybody in front of those knives.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know the movie's called Knives Out, but you don't know why it's called Knives Out, and you see all these knives from a murder mystery author behind everybody as they're being interviewed, and it is fun that wall of knives comes into play later.
Yeah, the framing. I mean, every scene in this film is so intentional.
Everything has
the
purpose.
cinematography is beautiful. We did fail to mention Toni Collette, who is incredible at playing that ditzy blonde bimbo who's just, you know, she knows nothing, but she knows everything.
A lot of these actors are playing a character that they don't normally play.
It's very, they're all playing kind of...
Like Toni Collette doesn't usually play a bimbo.
She is really good at being like the ditzy person, though.
She is. No, she's absolutely amazing doing it in this movie.
We haven't seen a lot up to this point. We hadn't seen a lot of Chris Evans being like the douchey bad guy because he's Captain America. He's not allowed. You can't see Chris Evans.
Pilgrim. He was a big douche.
Yeah, but like
he's not in it very much.
When I think of Scott Pilgrim, I don't think of Chris Evans.
No, of course not. It's a cameo. It's a short cameo.
In every other movie, he's like charming in like a sweet way, whereas in this movie, he's charming in a smarmy way.
What was the name of the Russo brothers film that?
The Gray Man.
Yeah,
The
I
Gray
really
Man
like
is
his.
Such a fun movie.
I love his douchey.
Why are you
smarmy...
limping? Because I got shot in the ass, Suzanne.
He's hilarious in that. Even though he's a huge douche, he's funny.
Yeah, that came after this movie, though. So, like,
no,
I feel like this was the first time
up to this point,
most people knew him as Captain America, and they hadn't seen this side of him. Back to the interrogation scene. It's such a long interrogation scene that's why we're kind of...
Well, it's all the exposition.
Yeah.
But like we said, this is a fun and creative way to not board you with exposition.
Yeah. But we're introduced to Benoit Blanc in that scene by a single piano note. Bing, bing. Every time somebody has, or it's every time he wants the cop, who is Lakeith Steinfeld, to question the person about who showed up at the party when he hits the piano note. And I think that's such a brilliant way of bringing your attention to Blanc, and it brings the character's attention to Blanc. Because they're all suddenly like...
Excuse me, who is that?
Yeah, who is this person in the corner? I love when Toni Collette says, I read a tweet about a New Yorker article about you. Like, she didn't read the article. Jamie Lee Curtis read the article. Yeah. But Toni Collette's ditzy character just read a tweet about it. Daniel Craig is so much better than James Bond ever let him be. Every time I see him in something where he gets to be wacky and weird, like Logan Lucky... It's such a weird movie.
That's the name. I was trying to look up the name of that movie because I was like, I can't remember the name of it, but I remember really liking it.
Yeah.
Logan Lucky. And
Daniel Craig is bonkers in that film. He's incredible as Benoit Blanc. Like the accent, that sort of foghorn leghorn, down home, southern country guy. Like, he's just such an incredible actor, and I'm glad that we get to see him in stuff that isn't just James Bond or James Bond adjacent.
There were two other moments during the interview process that I had to write down because of just the wackiness of this movie and how well I liked the writing. Jamie Lee Curtis's character is questioned about her brother, Michael Shannon's character, about how much he runs the company. Because she loves her younger brother, I think she calls him my little brother. Mm-hmm. So she stands up for her brother, saying, "Oh yeah, he runs the company. He's in charge of all this stuff." And the very next scene is her husband, Don Johnson, who's like, "He doesn't do shit," and like completely throws Michael Shannon's character under the bus.
Don Johnson is so underratedly good in this fucking movie.
And if you haven't watched The Watchmen from HBO,
oh man,
whatever your thoughts were of Zack Snyder's film.
Yeah.
Watch the HBO series.
The HBO series, Watchmen,
it's short and it's amazing.
It is. I think it's fundamental viewing, honestly, for any like pop culture nerd, for any comic book fan, and just in general for any human being. Because like I never knew about the Tulsa Massacre until that show. It
was that show, and at the same time was Lovecraft Country. Mm-hmm. And we've now
just very recently
from Watchmen.
Yeah.
Louis Gossett Jr. played on that show. And Michael Kenneth Williams, who was also in Boardwalk Empire, and Lovecraft Country, also died 2021. But another amazing actor. I just wanted to point those two guys out and those two shows. And then the other final moment during that interview that I really liked was when Don Johnson talks about seeing Hamilton.
Oh my God, Hamilton reference.
But not only did he have to say, I saw Hamilton, but then he has to say, I saw it at the public theater, which is where it premiered.
Yeah.
And of course, he, as a rich douche, he absolutely has to let people know that he saw Hamilton at the public theater.
Yeah, he was one of the first people. Real quick, one other actor we lost very recently was Emmett Walsh, who has a short scene in this movie as the security guard on the grounds, and he was just one of those incredible character actors that I was always happy seeing in pretty much anything.
He's in 1,000
He's in
movies.
1,000 things. I always very fondly remember him from a very wacky 6th or 7th season X-Files episode. But I can't talk too much about the X-Files because I will start screaming. He was incredible in this movie, and, he also had a good long life. And even though he kind of looked like a walking corpse in this film, he still stuck around for a few more years and did a lot more stuff. He worked right up to the end. So cutting from the interrogation scene and to the scene where we figure out kind of what happened to Harlan. Well, we see the truth. Watching him and Marta just talk and laugh and have their kind of casual everyday chats. It's really a sweet story of these two friends, and I very much enjoyed watching them. She's in the process of giving him his nighttime drugs, his nighttime medicines, as they chat and they play a board game called Go, which I think, Caveman, you know how to play or something like it?
I used to have both backgammon and Go, and I never learned how to play backgammon, even though I tried.
Oh man, we had backgammon sets growing up too, and I remember using them as play sets for my dolls, but I couldn't tell you how that game is played at all.
I have played Go, but it's been decades by now, and I don't think it's not ingrained in my memory the way chess is.
Mm-hmm. But so we come to find out that it looks like Marta has accidentally poisoned Harlan
because she's reading the labels of the bottles.
Because she's reading the labels of the bottles
after she gave him
10
milligrams of what she thought was one thing, and then she reads the bottles because we learn later that she's used to picking up the right thing no matter what the label says. She just instinctively knows that this one's a little cloudier, and therefore
and has a different weight.
Therefore just she picked one up. At one time you see her pick one up, put it down, and then pick the other one, the right one up.
So the whole scene where he realizes that he's about to die. Apparently he only has 10 minutes to live, and he works very quickly with his writer brain to try to figure out a way for Marta to not be held accountable for the death. And also, because we come to find out that she's gotten everything in the will, I think that was his way of trying to protect her and keep her, get her what she's due, basically. Give her everything in the will, because he doesn't want his family to have it. And what I really love about that whole scene, that whole montage of her leaving the house, coming back, climbing up the trellis, doing all these different things, she has conversations with Harlan during it. The voiceover is them talking while she's doing the thing. He's like, now you have to climb a trellis. And she goes, really? And he goes, yeah. But even though at this point in the movie he's already long dead, it's just really well cut together. That entire scene, I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, this film had a lot more humor in it than I think any other Rian Johnson film, especially. Like you said, Plummer's narration, when I think it was Don Johnson throws the baseball out the window, and you see him throw it from inside, and then it cuts to just seeing a window and a ball fly out of it. I thought that was really funny.
Like I said, the cinematography is beautiful in this film. Who's one person that we haven't talked about yet in this phenomenal cast? Nana.
Oh, Nana.
Nana, who is the mother of Harlan.
Is that you?
So she, at one point, somebody asks how old she is, and the reply is just, we don't even know. She's just this old, decrepit woman just living in this house. If Harlan was 85, this woman has to be at least 90, 100? At least 100, right? Even if she gave birth to him at 15, she's at least 100 years old. And she's always just kind of sitting in the corner, just staring, and she doesn't really talk.
Well, yeah, she's in a wheelchair.
She's totally
can't
decrepit.
Really do much.
But, man, every time she's on screen, she's a hoot. She has a couple jump scares even, and she's such a delight. I think it was very brutal that he commits suicide in front of her. The fact that she sees him slit his own throat is pretty brutal and kind of mean
to her.
It's a very cruel thing to do to her, especially because he knows that she can't lie. he knows that she's going to be questioned about it. He even tells her, like, you don't have to lie. You just don't have to tell the whole truth.
Repeat what I say in these steps and just these things.
But
that way.
To watch a person that you love, like, slit his own throat.
So
like,
violently, just slit his throat in front
brutal,
of him.
man.
When we see the aftermath, it's like, oh, that's what... And that is something that I really love about this movie. Not him committing suicide, but the way the secret is revealed at the beginning of the movie. Like, other murder mystery movies would not just show you the murder happen. If they do, the person committing the murder is blacked out. They're either wearing clothing that you can't see, their body shape or sex, height, age, any of that stuff, and they're usually blacked out of the screen and killing the victim, and you don't find out who did it till the end. But this one shows you everything up front. This is how it happened. They make you believe it's an accident and that he commits suicide. And at the beginning of the movie, you're like, all right, what did I miss? That seems...
Yeah, it's very straightforward.
It's suicide. So where are we going now? And I think that's why I really attached myself to liking this murder mystery movie over many others.
Mm-hmm.
With Marta, her illness, not really an illness, her...
inability to lie, her quirk.
Her quirk, yeah, I guess you could call it a quirk. It's when she cannot tell a lie without throwing up. Any kind of fib, even after she gets through all the points that Christopher Plummer told her to say, that it's not lying. It's not lying.
She still
in
has
her
to throw
head,
up.
she still knows she's keeping something secret and still has a moment where she throws up a little.
Doing absolutely no research, do you think that that's a real condition?
So...
Oh, boy. Here he goes.
I had to look it up. This is from Dr. Kara Gross-Margolis. She is a member of the American Gastroenterological Association, which I'm sure is something to do with the gut. And this is a quote from her. I've never had a patient who got nauseous or throws up every time they lied, but I think it's a little bit of the stretching of a phenomenon that we see quite often, which is how significant anxiety can lead to nausea and vomiting. So if she has such bad anxiety from lying, it could cause her to be nauseous and throw up.
Okay.
It's not something that anybody has been reported to have, but
it's not like phantom limb syndrome,
right?
Or
right. It's not an illness or a syndrome
faces.
that people are known to have. But it is possible that if she had a high enough anxiety, it could cause her to throw up. Some of these characters actually do care about their father. I feel like his children love him.
Oh, his children absolutely love him.
But they also just see dollar signs.
Yeah, I mean, in the way that anybody can love a parent who... I mean, we didn't know what his parenting style was. We don't know where the mom is. We don't know what kind of dad he was.
We get a little bit of what the kind of dad he was by the way his kids talk about him. Jamie Lee Curtis's character absolutely adored her father.
Yeah, they had like really sweet moments with each other.
Really strong relationship. Of all the characters, I think her character and the dad really bonded.
Yeah, they bond the most for sure. Or they are bonded the most for sure. They've got their secret letters that they write to each other.
But I bring this up because there was a movie I saw last year that I absolutely adored, and I think more people need to watch it. And it was nominated for Best Cinematography this last Oscar season. El Conde, which means The Count. It's a Chilean film that you can find on Netflix it's about a vampire, yes. And to not get too much into the plot, it reminded me a lot of Knives Out because it's got a family of siblings who are after their father's fortune because he's a vampire and he has lived a long life and he just wants to die. He is tired of being a vampire. He's tired of living so many centuries and just wants it over with. And before he goes, he wants to make sure that his fortune is
saved or gone off to the right people.
Yeah, but he knows that his children are just the greediest assholes, and does not want his money going to his children. So when I was watching that movie, it reminded me a lot of Knives Out.
Before the will is read, we are introduced to the one and only Ransom, played by Chris Evans, who we've already talked about being absolutely such an asshole in this film. But he is so good at it. And when he blows into the family and just causes absolute chaos for all of them, it's so much fun to watch. The way that he gets under everybody's skin, the whole eat shit line.
Eat shit.
Eat shit. And then Michael Shannon, I will not eat one iota of shit. Again, Michael Shannon, just the underrated star of this fucking film. Ransom he's charming, he's handsome, he's rich, he's a murderer, he's a lot of things, but Chris Evans plays him so well. He does a really, really great job in the role, and it's nice seeing him, because this was also in like the heyday of Captain America, so we were used to him being truth, justice in the Captain America way. So seeing him be this like asshole character was a delight.
Even though the cast in this movie was so strong already, I think one of the big draws for me to go watch it was probably because of Chris Evans, because I did love him so much as Captain America.
They definitely used him as the main draw, because you didn't know that he was going to be... You kind of knew that he was going to be a douchey character, but you didn't know that he was...
Yeah, the whole family's just douchey characters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's just another one that's being douchey.
I love when the whole family is, like, arguing, like, just bitterly arguing with each other, and even, like, scrapping just a little bit. The cops are just standing in the background watching it.
Okay, so the slap fight that Michael Shannon and Don Johnson have together.
Oh, it's a delight.
I love that Ryan Johnson got Michael Shannon and Don Johnson to have this really childlike sibling fight by just slapping at each other, and
it's just great. They're so wonderful.
And then Michael Shannon is like asking at Chris Evans, just, "You want a cookie? You want a cookie?" Like, like what? Okay.
He has a line, which I don't know verbatim, but he talks about how maybe he'll leave you a nice cold glass of milk in the will, because they all kind of knew that he had been cut out of the will, that Ransom, right? I think they knew that Ransom had been cut out of the will. Either way.
By that moment?
Yeah, because they all heard. No, they knew about it because of the Nazi kid was masturbating in the bathroom.
That's right.
And heard.
That's right. That's why they were so smug when he came in.
Yeah, it's because they all knew.
They knew. They weren't saying anything, but they knew he was written out.
Because Michael Shannon's little Nazi teenager son was masturbating in the bathroom in his granddad's office and heard the argument. This movie is so fucking funny, guys. Like, really, truly. Watch it again. It's so good.
Well, and it always helps to watch it again, because I completely forgot that the guy reading the will was Frank Oz. As soon as he came on screen, I was like, oh yeah, Frank Oz is in this movie.
Yoda and Miss Piggy is in this movie.
If you guys don't know who Frank Oz is, because I don't know.
What are we doing
I don't
here?
know the audience.
What are we doing here?
I don't know the audience we have. I don't know your age or anything. So for those of you who don't know Frank Oz, he voices a lot of characters that you have grown up with, maybe. You got, of course, Yoda. Yoda's probably the biggest voice, the most iconic voice. Between Yoda and Miss Piggy, those are probably the two most iconic voices he's ever done. He also does Bert and Grover, Cookie Monster, Fozzie Bear, Sam the Eagle.
You mean Oscar Isaac in Muppet form? Sorry, that's
Sure.
a deep cut for no one but me.
Great. I'm glad we're doing a podcast for you. To you. But he's also a very great established director. You've got Dark Crystal, Muppets Take Manhattan, Little Shop of Horrors, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, What About Bob, The Indian in the Cupboard, In and Out, Bowfinger, and one of my favorites, Death at a Funeral. The original British Death at a Funeral.
We need to do a bonus episode on the original British, actually on both versions of Death at a
Compare
Funeral,
'em.
because the American version, the American redone, is
Not bad.
solid. It's solid, especially keeping Peter Dinklage in it was nice. But
It's not bad, but
the
British
British
version-
one it's one of the funniest British comedies outside of like Monty Python. It's a laugh a minute. If you haven't seen that film, guys, it's so. Go check out the British version of Death at a Funeral. That's something that Caveman and I quote often when we look at each other and go, everything's so fucking green.
But the way, once the will is read and it is revealed that Marta is the sole inheritance of everything.
She gets everything.
The speed in which first we have Christopher Plummer's character dies, and the whole family is like, Marta, if there's anything you
family.
need, you are family to us. We'll
take care
we'll
of you.
take care of you. We will give you money, and we will take. She's a nurse. It's not like she's destitute because she lost
Her
a
job.
client.
Yeah.
Like she's gonna have another client. It's her job, but they're treating her like she's been suckling on the Christopher Plummer teat this whole time.
Yeah.
And she's just doing her job, and they're like, "We'll take care of you. You're fine." But then once it's revealed that now she's richer than any of them,
Yeah. The way they
just
turn on her like
so fast.
animals.
Yeah, they accuse her of screwing their father, of blackmail,
Yeah.
of everything that they could think of as a reason why their dad would give.
And they keep
this-
bothering Frank Oz, the lawyer,
Yeah.
like trying to come up with ways, and he just won't.
Like blaming him for this.
When Jamie Lee Curtis says, like, this is still our house, and then they all turn and look at Frank Oz, and Frank Oz looks at the very small will and goes, no, the house is also left to Marta. So funny. And that poor girl, like, she should have, I guess maybe she would have been aware if things hadn't gone the way that they did. It makes me wonder if he ever would have told her. But
Ever, maybe not.
But the fact that he left everything to her and the whole family was left out, shockingly, was truly a delightful scene. I also find it very sweet. I notice these things because I'm a romantic and me. But there's a moment when everybody's like freaking out because Marta has just been, named heir to the, throne,
Yeah.
basically.
The knife throne.
The knife throne. The the steel throne. That everybody kind of like, all the family members get up and kind of move towards her, and Blanc very protectively stands in front of her. And I like moments like
he
that.
puts himself in between.
He puts himself between her and these
even though I don't think he
family
was
members.
ever a cop.
I don't know what his backstory is, but just the
I know they never get into
the
it,
side of
but
protectiveness.
he does show concern and I don't know another word.
just care, like it, and I find that sweet. If any of you have watched the David Tennant, Catherine Tate, Much Ado About Nothing, there's a moment where David Tennant's very protective towards another character, and I watched that like 17 times. Anyways, so she gets all the money as she rushes out of the house to try to get away from the family. She ends up kind of riding off with Ransom and going off with him, where she then tells him the whole story about what happened between her and Harlan. So now Ransom knows the truth about what happened to his grandpa.
So Chris Evans comes to Marta's rescue, and to get her away from the family, but he's got his own devious plans already.
He's got his own.
He essentially is using Marta to figure out what happened. His death was supposed to be accidental, not suicide.
Yeah.
If it's suicide, nobody gets money?
No, I think that if it's suicide, she still gets the money, because ultimately it was a suicide, so she still gets all the money.
But Ransom wants it to be an accidental death.
He wants her to be, because
He hires
Ransom.
Benoit.
Yeah, Ransom knows that everything's being left to Marta, so he switches the morphine and the other drug in order to enact what is known as the Slayer Clause, I think, where she wouldn't get the will, so she wouldn't be the benefactor of the will because she was responsible for Harlan's death.
Sure.
And even though it was an accident, even though it was just because she, mistook the bottles, she is still legally responsible for his death, even, and
wouldn't
thus,
get anything.
yeah, she wouldn't get anything. The fact that Harlan then killed himself, because it was supposed to look like an accidental death, the fact that Harlan killed himself is what kind of created all the chaos.
Right. It means it's a suicide. Now all the money is guaranteed to go to Marta,
Yeah.
and Ransom won't get anything.
Yeah. And he's trying to help her, quote unquote, figure out, what to do, because he wants his share of
He wants
the
to
will.
share. He wants to figure out what happened and why it wasn't an accidental death, and he's trying to figure out how much evidence the police have found.
Yeah. But ultimately, it's because he wants the money he thinks he's due. One scene where Meg, who is played by Catherine Langford, and throughout the whole movie, Meg, who's like a young college student, she is the daughter of she's the daughter of Harlan's dead son. Tony Collette is her mother. Still milking the teat of the rich family, even though she's connected but not really connected to her in-laws anymore. And everybody's really tired of her being there, which I find delightful. Jamie Lee Curtis and the way that she treats Toni Collette's character is so funny. Catherine calls up Marta to be like, hey girl, like, how you doing? Everything okay? But, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to give us the money? Because her family makes her. Her family knows that Marta and Meg are close, that they've got a better rapport than Marta has with the rest of the family. So they use her to, like, get at her. And I just thought that was so devious and mean. When, you think that Marta and Meg are just having this, like, conversation, but then the camera pulls back to reveal the whole family standing behind her. Yeah, trying to, like, manipulate the situation. I found that very delightful. I also loved when Michael Shannon tried to, like, threaten Marta in the hallway of her apartment complex when the news gets a hold of the fact that this famous mystery writer has left everything to his nurse instead of his family. When Michael Shannon is, like, threatening her, or not threatening her, he's being gentle about his threats, but ultimately he's like, well, what about your mom who's undocumented? What about her? Like, if you gave us, the money, then we could help.
We'll take care.
We've got all the resources.
We know how to do this the correct way. You don't know how to be rich.
We've got the money, so we'll hire the lawyers and we'll do all that for you. And she's just like, oh, well, thanks for the idea. Basically, she's like, you just told me exactly what to do, so thanks.
Yeah, I'm going to go get some lawyers.
I love that. I love the way that she turned it around on him. Did you notice anytime that you've watched this film that Benoit Blanc is the first person to offer condolences to Nana for the fact that her son died? He's the only person that talks to her like a normal person and with any level of concern because, Harlan is her son and her son just died. So Benoit Blanc's the only person to offer condolences. And I found that very sweet. I thought that it was a very telling moment for his character, which is kind and, gentle and caring.
I mean, we'll see even more of that kind, gentle character of Benoit Blanc in Glass Onion.
One person we haven't talked about, too, who's really awesome in this. I mean, she's got very few lines, and she's always just in the background, but it was really great to see Rikki Lindholm playing the wife of Michael Shannon's character. You may not know her name, but you know her as this really wonderful comedy actress. She is in a musical duo called Garfunkel and Oates with Kate Micucci. She was on this incredibly funny and twisted Comedy Central series called Another Period. She's just a fabulous...
Really funny.
Yeah.
Another Period is great.
She's just a fabulous comedian, and I adore her. So I was really like, oh, good for you, seeing her hold her own in this play, or in this movie, especially because she's playing this, like, uptight, blonde, conservative, sort of, like, snatched pearls woman. And knowing that she's anything but I was really glad for her to have such a kind of a beefy, line on her resume. Like, good for you. You were in Knives Out. Like, that's great. You care about the little people.
Oh, when you see people you've been following forever with their really
their
small career.
careers. They're just the little things that they're doing.
And you see it just gradually grow, and they're in a bigger project, and then a bigger project, and then finally
but still doing their fun little stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just when you really like an actor or director, or, when you see them start off small and become big, it's fun to see that journey.
Yeah, I'm always really happy to see her in anything. Her and Kate Micucci.
Somebody that I could compare that to for myself would be James Gunn. I remember when James Gunn he had one movie under his belt. Mm-hmm. And then I'm pretty sure it was Slither. Did he do Slither before or after Super?
I think Slither was first. Slither is hopefully a movie that we can revisit come Halloween time, because it's one of the few scary movies that I like. It's a very twisted sort of like dark horror humor. It's a fun one, but it's definitely one of his earlier works.
I think we are planning. This is way down the line from now, but there's some stuff coming out for Halloween and Christmas this year for our podcast.
Yeah, it's neat that we get to. It is so far away, and who knows what's going to happen between now and then. But
it's only April.
It's only April, but we are already talking about how we want to do like the holidays and the holiday movies. And it's a lot of fun planning this whole thing with you, Shapoopy. I'm having a ton of fun. So yes, you are correct. Slither was his first film. Followed that up by, some more TV series. Yep, Super was next.
As far as films.
And then he directed a segment for Movie 43, which, yoif. And then immediately into Guardians Galaxy. He really didn't.
He was all over the place in the beginning.
Well, yeah, in his director way. Like, he's been writing things forever, but direction.
I remember watching him on a show that I used to watch on G4 called Attack of the Show.
Attack of the Show!
He was a regular guest on that show.
I remember him on that.
He was funny. He was so young. That young director with a lot of ideas and a lot of gumption. And there was one time where he was on to talk about a video game that he wrote called Lollipop.
Do you need me to look it up, or does it matter? Because we're already well off topic.
I know, we're so off topic. That's what we do. It doesn't matter. But seeing him go from this guest on a basic cable channel nerd show to gradually more movies he's directing,
more and more things, and then fucking Marvel,
and now he is in control of DC cinematic universe. Such
a great guy.
And so seeing somebody small become somebody even bigger is really fun to watch.
Real quick, the reason why I saw Slither for the first time was because my best friend Jessie, shout out my darling, was going through a Nathan Fillion phase where she was obsessed with everything that he did, and so she made me come over to his house to her house and watch Slither, because she was just obsessed with Nathan Fillion back in the old days. Man, the old days. Remember that, Jess? Those are some good times. Fran's death was particularly brutal.
That was a really brutal killing.
I remember the first time I saw that movie, and all of a sudden it's like, Fran's trying to blackmail Ransom because she knows that she saw him tampering with the medical bag. And because there's this whole, we haven't touched on it, but there's this whole, blackmail storyline.
It's kind of a B storyline.
Yeah, it's kind of a B story. We're not going to go into it. But anyways, what Ransom does is he lures her to this old laundromat and injects her with a bunch of morphine. And then when we see her for the first time, because Marta's character is now in the laundromat trying to figure out who's quote unquote blackmailing her. When we see Fran for the first time, she's sitting there, eyes wide open, looking like she's dead with a spider crawling on her face, which
the spider was definitely a great touch to show you how dead she was.
No, but she wasn't dead.
No, but you don't know that as an audience member.
No, you don't.
You
just think that she's dead. But the spider was uncomfortable, and I remember the first time I saw that movie, I was like, I don't like this. This was unnecessary. She ultimately reveals to Marta that, quote unquote, you did this. You did this. But what she's actually saying is Hugh did this. because
he insists that the servants and other workers around the house call him by his
Hugh.
first name.
Yeah, which is
even
Hugh.
though everybody else calls him Ransom.
Because he's a rich white douchebag. And then that basically brings us to the big reveal, which is one of my favorite things about any detective movie. I'm a big fan of the Kenneth Branagh Poirot movies. A Murder in Venice, or the Venice one.
A Haunting
in Venice, thank you. That is a particularly well done movie. Death on the Nile was a lot of fun. The other one, I like a good detective movie. I love a good, if you haven't seen the Thin Man movies, with William Powell and Myrna Loy. I always love the big, all right, everybody's in the room and we're gonna figure it out. And yeah, it's been spoofed a lot, and it's kind of been done to death. But when it's done right, it's so much fun. Daniel Craig is a big part of just why this movie works. I don't think that... Obviously, I can't imagine Benoit Blanc being played by any other character because he is just so charming and it's so well done. But I don't know of any other character that could kind of get into the goofy physicality of the role, of the way that he's so studious in the background. Your eye kind of travels to him and you see him watching people. He's fun, and he's having fun.
I kind of wonder what it would be like if you switch Daniel Craig and Kenneth Branagh as actors and put them in each other's movies. How they would compared to... Stupid cat.
I don't know. Kenneth Branagh is a delightful person. He has done a lot of really fun and funny movies. I adore Kenneth Branagh, and another one of Jesse's deep obsessions, which I wholeheartedly agree with. He's just so handsome. But maybe it's because of his age now, but I don't think that if Kenneth Branagh played Benoit Blanc, I don't think that he would have as much fun as Daniel Craig is having. And Daniel Craig is having so much fun. You can see it. You especially see it in Glass Onion. That whole cast is having just a ball. But I just, I just don't know. I think that I also don't even think that Daniel Craig could play a good Poirot because he's not old enough. I think that there's just an age barrier there.
I think he's old. I mean...
No, Kenneth Branagh's got a good 10 years on him, and it's needed for the Poirot role versus Benoit Blanc. It needs to be a little more youthful and a little more fun.
Old enough.
Well, you asked my opinion, and I'm giving it.
I like Daniel Craig's accent. It's very different to hear his as he points at him and says, CSI KFC?
That's such a cheesy line. There is one thing...
It,
I know. There is one
Made me
thing
laugh.
about these movies, which are... They're a bit held down by the times that they were filmed in. So, there's references, their humor is very topical to the time that they were filmed and came out, especially in Glass Onion with the whole COVID thing, which I don't know how well it's going to play 50 years down the line.
I mean, there are definitely references in this one where Ransom calls Marta baby driver because of the way she's driving and speeding and running away from the cops.
The jokes are a little too topical, which is my only real critique of the film.
It's always fun in the moment when you're watching. You're just like, haha, baby driver.
But then a few years later, you're like, oh boy, Baby Driver did not age well.
If you watch movies from the 80s or 90s that have topical, you watch them now and you're just like, oh, maybe they shouldn't have been so topical.
Yeah, it's not, and you don't always remember the jokes.
Because you want a movie, especially good movies, to be ageless. It definitely helps. And,
in 25 years, are people really going to remember CSI? I mean, they will, because it's a part of the cultural lexicon, but even you just had to take a second to be like, wait, what?
I was like, wait, why are we talking about CSI?
So,
and then it's like, oh yeah, the CSI KFC.
So that's my own critique of this film, is I find the humor a little too topical. And that will probably be a critique that I have for Glass Onion as well, because it's very sort of COVID related. But you know what? It's still a great film, and it doesn't affect it. It doesn't hurt the film in my eyes.
Ransom had to burn down
a medical examiner's office.
Right. That's bold move.
That really is.
I mean, murdering somebody is pretty bold. But,
Yeah,
but then going out and burning down a medical examiner's
and
office.
all the evidence that was with it. I mean, he tampered with the evidence of countless cases.
Not just the murder of Christopher Plummer's character, but countless cases that were probably saved.
And he sort of shrugs it off, being like, "Oh, I'm just going to get an arson charge." Like, no, he legit screwed up the entire judicial process of that town for some time because he burned everything. That is a very bold move, but he was trying to be more clever.
He wanted to. Yes, he was trying to be more clever.
He was trying to be as clever as he wanted his grandpa to think that he was.
But
and
he really wasn't. He just wanted to. He obviously did it because he wanted to get rid of the evidence that just showed that his grandfather had no signs of any extra.
There was just normal traces of the morphine.
It was just
and the
normal
other drugs,
morphine, normal. Because Marta's a better nurse, and she's a great nurse
and a good person. Because she was going to admit to the family that it was, that his death was her fault.
Yeah, and then Benoit reads the medical examiner's report.
When she tells Ransom that Fran is alive and then throws up in his face. Like, it's
really
such
chunky.
It's so chunky. It's
like
such...
Because I think they hide the vomit throughout the majority. I think
maybe
you don't
the
ever
very
see
first
the
vomit.
time you
no,
might see.
You don't really ever see. Like,
she's really good at being
kind of
polite about
off-screen,
not showing everything.
But
and
when
then
she just like throws
blows
up in
chunks.
his and then like you have to look at him with like vomit
it's
on
all
his
over.
face.
He's just like reacting to it being in his face and trying to wipe it away and just being disgusted by that. And then one of my favorite Chris Evans scenes of just the way it's played out with him, because now he wants to.
He realizes that
he reacts. His gut reaction is to kill Marta, so he just grabs a knife off the throne, and tackles her to the ground and stabs her in the chest. And you're like, oh shit, he just stabbed her in the chest. Mm-hmm. And then just the slow up of the
reveal
knife,
that it's a prop knife.
That it's a prop knife. But then it's when he goes back down and up.
Shit.
That's genius filmmaking. It's such a funny moment because that could have been played 100 different ways, but the fact that they played it with a little which it does call back to a line that Christopher Plummer has in the beginning where he says that Ransom wouldn't know a prop knife from a real knife. Yep. Yeah.
It's a great callback.
It really is a great callback. And
that
then,
you're not expecting when it happens.
No.
When you see that knife plunged into her chest, you're not thinking to yourself, well,
I didn't even know
Plummer
those knives
said,
were fake. Like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, you don't even know.
Well, and I always wondered if there were real ones up there and fake ones mixed in.
Yeah, and he just grabbed
and he just happened to grab a fake one.
I don't know. He did have children around the house at some point. I can't imagine that he would have a throne of real knives. But like, who's to say? The way that this movie ends with Marta standing on the balcony looking down at all the family members, holding the coffee cup that just says "my house" because her fingers are covering up the other part. It's so brilliant, and they're all staring up at her, and they all know that they're gonna get shit. I mean, I think in my heart, I feel like she's a nice enough person that she will either give them a little money and say this is the only amount that you get, or I think she's gonna help out Meg.
Might maybe get her through college.
Yeah, she might offer I'll finish your schooling.
Other than the time when the adult children convinced her to call and betray her, Marta, essentially. I think Meg was completely blameless in everything.
She was. She really was the best of all those family members.
It wasn't her fault that her mom was skimming money off the top, taking two tuitions, sending one to the school and keeping another tuition for herself.
I mean, I kind of guess I know where all that money went, but where did all that money go?
Yeah, I know. A tuition's worth. I mean,
4 years of a tuition's worth. Jesus.
That's a lot
That's
of money.
A lot of money. Especially a prestigious,
I'm
college
sure she has
in
a
New
lot
York.
She was expecting a check from her father-in-law on a consistent basis. She didn't expect her father-in-law to figure it out.
Yeah.
And he did, and now she's broke because he's not paying her anymore. He gives her one more check and was like,
Yeah,
There you
this
go.
is the
That's
end
your
of it,
last one.
yeah. Ultimately, it's something that we didn't really touch upon, but like everybody in the family is somehow screwing over Harlan's character. Like everybody is taking advantage
Everybody's
of the
doing
dad.
something.
You know,
What was-
Don Johnson's cheating on Jamie Lee Curtis and doesn't want her to find out. Michael Shannon's not a good publisher. He's not running the company well, and his dad decides to fire him. Chris Evans is just a dick. Toni Collette is stealing money.
What did Jamie Lee Curtis's character?
I think other than being kind of an overbearing bitch, I don't think she did do anything wrong.
Yeah, because the only thing that's tied to her
But-
is her cheating husband.
Yeah, but is that why I don't know why he would cut her out of the will for the fact that her husband's cheating on her.
There must have been. There must have been a line.
And there must have been a line. Honestly, I don't remember. Not in this current moment.
No.
And yeah, maybe the next time we watch it, we'll catch on.
Like,
or
oh,
maybe
yeah.
it's just because of how she acted. You know, she wasn't a nice person. She was Ransom's mother. She was willing to stick with her husband, who's such a dick. Like, maybe he was just fed up with her the same way that he was.
There's a line.
Yeah,
or a
there has to be
scene
something,
at the
but
beginning or something they were doing everybody, but
it doesn't matter.
oh well.
But yeah, and that brings us to the end of the movie, and I was really happy to rewatch it. I'm really happy that we got to sit down and talk about it. It's a fun film.
After the scene of the family looking up at Marta and Marta looking down at them, and the coffee mug from the beginning coming back at the end, and just perfectly too, because I mean now it's has more meaning.
Yeah.
My
house.
home, my rules,
Yeah.
my coffee, and her mug now too.
Yeah, everything in that house belongs to her.
It's all hers. So after that great ending, even though I really liked the song, it was an interesting choice to
I
put
couldn't
in.
tell you what that song was.
Oh, it was "Sweet Virginia" by the Rolling Stones.
I
It's not. I don't think it's not like a top tier Rolling Stones
Yeah.
song that you hear a lot.
It's not
but
like
I thought
Sympathy for the Devil.
I
or
thought it was
anything.
a nice fitting end, music wise. But I had to look at the lyrics just to see if there was anything that I could puzzle out, figure out to see if it tied in at all with what I had just watched. And after looking at the lyrics, like really looking at, I can't find anything that's really significant. Not that every song choice has to have.
Well, but everything in
significance,
this movie is so deliberate.
which is why I mean
But
I could.
The Gordon Lightfoot song playing in the background when Ransom and Marta are having their conversation, which is Sundown, the lyrics of that song play heavily into the film. And I'm not going to go into the details. I just know that it does. And also, Gordon Lightfoot, man, ripped to a legend. That guy is a phenomenal musician, and I will love him forever.
I'll let you be the judge of if this song has any kind of significance
Okie
as
dokie.
far as tying into the film itself. Wading through the waste, stormy winter, and there's not a friend to help you through. Trying to stop the waves behind your eyeballs. Drop your reds, drop your greens and blues. Thank you for your wine, California. Thank you for your sweet and bitter fruits. Yes, I got the desert in my toenail, and I hid the speed inside my shoe. But come on down, sweet Virginia. Come on, honey child, beg you, come on down. You got it in you, got to scrape the shit right off your shoes. I want you to come on and sing it with me one time. All right. Yeah, I want you to come down. And yeah, it just
Goes
repeats
on.
the chorus. There, as
Other
I read
than
it,
maybe just
there's a few
lines, like the
tiny
lines
little
about her
things.
kind of being like on her own.
Waste
and,
through the stormy winter.
yeah, wiping the shit off her shoe because she literally like wiped the shit of that family, and everything's. But I don't know, like I didn't run into the fact that song didn't fit the way that you did.
I didn't run into it. I just like to, when I hear a song, especially an end credit song, I like to try to figure out why that song was chosen
because
to
we have been
end a movie.
conditioned to of the end credit songs being very like the proper wrap up to a film. But yeah, I don't.
Like you said, and especially with a film that has
Is
just
this
so much
deliberate?
meaning and
Yeah.
so much like Easter eggs and so much. Yeah,
I don't know.
everything's deliberate.
Maybe that's something you should look into.
Could just be a favorite song, a favorite Rolling Stones
Maybe
song.
it
from
was a
Ryan
song.
Johnson.
Maybe it's about the mood of the song and not necessarily the lyrics. Maybe it's about the mood, and maybe Ryan Johnson liked that song while he was writing the script. Like it could be 1,000.
It could be
reasons,
1,000.
But
I was just wondering if you.
that's fair.
So Maggie, after now your second time watching this movie, out of 5 stars, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give it a solid... I'm kind of torn between a 4 and a 4.5. I'm going to give it a 4.5. I'm going to give it a 4.5. It's... I don't know. I'm torn just because I don't know if it deserves... It's not a 5-star movie. It's not Into the Spider-Verse.
Does this mean Glass Onion is a 5-star movie?
No. So I'm going to give it a 4 then. But I don't know. Maybe I won't like Glass Onion as much when we revisit it.
How many times have you watched Glass Onion?
Like 3 or 4.
Really? I've only seen it once.
I mean, I watched it. I know I've watched it twice, and then I've watched a bunch of YouTube people watch it, which means I've seen 10-minute clips of the film here and there. So, yeah, I'm gonna kind of hover solidly around the 4 range because it's a great film. It's a great cast. It's well written. It's well put together. It's a ton of fun. There are a couple flaws here and there that don't really, mean much to me in the end. But it's not a perfect film. But it is a fun, watchable, entertaining movie. So yeah, I'd give it a solid 4. It's great. What about you?
For the originality of the story, since I love murder mystery movies, and the acting power and how great the writing was, I'm just going to go for a 4.5.
That's fair. It deserves it. I mean, this isn't a 2-star film. This is it makes sense as to why it's in the top 10 of the Letterboxd top 60 movies. It's fun and entertaining and bright, and it's not a downer the way that Interstellar or the Joker was. It's not it makes you think like Everything Everywhere All at Once and Parasite, but it comes at everything with just a lighter, just fun way about it, and I'm glad for that. I'm glad that like people still want to watch movies that are kind of screwball and silly. It means that there's always going to be an audience for the lighter side of things. This movie has a lot of heavy topics, but it keeps everything light, and it's nice to see. So I'm glad for it. I'm glad for Rian Johnson. I cannot wait for the 3rd film. I know it's in development, but we know nothing about it. And frankly, I want to know nothing about it. Just when's it going to air, and bring it to me, please.
Hey, Maggie.
Yes, Caveman.
I have 2 questions for you.
Yay!
First question. Mm-hmm. Would the presence of Oscar Isaac have made this film better?
Yes, because putting him in anything makes everything better.
Seems to be a running theme in this.
Well, he is the most beautiful man on this planet. We just went to see Ex Machina on the IMAX screen, and it was my first time seeing that movie in its completion. I've only seen half of it up to this point. But seeing Oscar Isaac's arm vein, like 9 feet long on an IMAX movie screen, it did things.
I've only seen Ex Machina twice now.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw it was on my cell phone. So from seeing cell phone size, to IMAX size.
Oh, God, that arm vein got so big.
It was amazing. Question 2.
Yes.
Which character would you have had Oscar Isaac play?
So I've got my kind of funny answer and my real answer.
Okay.
My funny answer is that I think he could have replaced... If you could have replaced Oscar Isaac with Ana de Armas completely... And, like, his name still could have been Marta. And, like, you literally just take her out and put in Oscar Isaac. I would love to see that. Because, I think he'd do an incredible job. B, I want to see him throw up on somebody. Don't ask me why. And C... That's not true.
What weird shit are you into?
Whatever that man wants to do, he can do. I love him so much. So that's my joking answer. My actual answer would, even though I know that Noah Segan is a big friend of Rian Johnson and has been in everything that Rian Johnson has ever done, he played Trooper Wagner, who was a ton of fun throughout the entire movie, being like the nerdy like guy who was really into the mystery
Plummer's
novels.
Books.
Yeah, he was a delight. But I think you could have put Oscar Isaac into that role, and it would have been just as fun and a lot more handsome.
That would have been too much, though, because there are way too many beautiful people in this movie.
You know what? It doesn't matter. Just give me all the beautiful people all over my face, neck, and chest.
Beautiful people.
And that's this week's episode of Movie Mingle. We hope that you enjoyed it. We thoroughly enjoyed recording it. Join us next week where we will be talking about The Batman, which was a decisive movie, but a movie that, spoilers, I fucking love. So I cannot wait to talk about The Batman with all of you and with my caveman. You can find us on Instagram at movieminglepod. You can find us on Letterboxd, also at movieminglepod, where you get to follow along with how I, Maggie, rate all of the movies that we've watched, and also just all the movies that I've seen so far this year. And you can always email us at movieminglepod@gmail.com. Currently, the inbox for that only has messages from Letterboxd about their security, so please write us a letter. Let us know how you're doing. And Oscar Isaac, you especially, feel free to reach out anytime. And that's it for this week. Now go mingle.
Are you an effective team?
We are an effective team.
Let them fight.
How did you just do that?
I'm a really good lawyer.
Here on Caladan, we've ruled by air power and sea power. On Arrakis, we need to cultivate desert power.
Welcome, Mr. Beach. What's that bar? I'm a little confused. Well, we wouldn't want that, would we?
I don't want to brag, but I will. I was in the Avengers. The Avengers?
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. What is that?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Toga, toga, toga.